So you can't really see this too well on the screen. Sorry about that. It's supposed to be a masquerade mask. It's a little hard to see, but that's what it is, okay? You know, everywhere right now, someone is offended. Someone somewhere right now is offended. And out there in the world, you know. Everywhere, someone is getting offended about something at any given time. Well, more than that, people, I've noticed, especially in the younger people, I've noticed that there's kind of this disconnect that's taking place in life, and I think that this has a lot of causes, but I don't really want to get into that today, where people kind of take it personally when life happens. You know what I mean? Like, and everybody does this to a certain degree. You know, you have someone that you love that dies, for instance, and you say, oh, well, you know, why me? Why did this happen? Well, actually, it's happening all the time, everywhere, to people everywhere, you know. And so that's kind of normal, but it goes a little bit beyond that. It's kind of like this whole idea that there are no consequences for actions. I can do whatever I want. There's no consequence. Great example. You have kids nowadays who are getting jobs, smarting after their boss, and getting fired. And then they come and they're like, well, Pastor, I got fired from my job. I'm like, okay, well, what happened? Well, my boss, he was a jerk. Okay, well, his job's not to be likable. His job's to run the business and then to pay you for doing your job. Like, that's, you don't have to like the guy, you have to work for the guy, you know? And, you know, there's just this total disconnect, that there's no consequence for my actions. One of the things that comes to mind, now a couple years ago, this is funny. A couple years ago, there was this whole defund the police thing. You guys remember this? Now, I was never a big fan of that. That seems like a bad idea. It seems like you're taking something that's already kind of a little bit of an issue and making it a bigger issue, you know, kind of making a problem where there isn't one. But one thing I love from that, this is what really made me happy, is from that we got body cam footage where a lot of officers now wear body cams. Now, you know, some people feel one way or another about that. I don't see how it could possibly be a bad thing. And my biggest reason for saying this is because that body cam footage is just so funny. Like, so funny. Like, it's true that whenever somebody is doing something that you're going to not know how hard it is until you do it for yourself. That's true. But that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is all these times, these gems of these awkward situations that nobody was able to see. Now everyone is able to see. And so I was watching this one, and this woman is driving on the wrong side of the road. So she's driving into oncoming traffic. Okay. The cop sees her and pulls her over. Who would have thought? So she pulls off, and he follows her in. And he walks up to the car, and she's like, I just want to let you know that I have social anxiety, and I am an indigenous person. And so the cop's like, okay. Do you know why I pulled you over? And she's like, I know, but I'm new here, and, you know, I was just a little turned around. Which right there, I mean, being new to a place, I've visited lots of places. I've never once driven on the wrong side of the road, but let's keep playing through. So she's all, you know, you know, this is what he's like, okay, all right, well, can I see your license and license and registration? Which obviously, you know, we all saw that one coming. She's all, I don't really feel comfortable with that. And he's like, well, you know, I'll give it back. You know, I just need to see this. And she's like, okay, but I just want to let you know I have social anxiety. And he's like, okay, I will get back with this. So he goes and he comes back and he's like, are you on anything? Are you taking anything? And she's all, well, no, officer. He's like, okay, well, I'm going to need to do a sobriety test, okay? We can do this a number of different ways, but I think it'd be easier if you just step out of your car. I just really don't feel comfortable with it. Okay, all right, well, what am I doing that's making you feel uncomfortable? Well, I just have social anxiety. So I said, hey, we all do. I just need you to step out of the car. We're going to do a sobriety test. It's going to be really easy. And she gets out and she starts doing it. He explains this thing, and the whole video takes 15 minutes long. He explains how to do the sobriety test at least 5 times. He says it, and she does it wrong. He's like, okay, I need you to do this. And the whole time, he doesn't lose his temper one single time. I have never once been talked to as nice from a cop as this cop was talking to this lady. Okay, never once have I ever experienced this. And I remember one time an officer was telling me, thank you for giving him a hamburger. And I still have never been talked to as nice as this guy was talking to this girl. Okay, so just so we're all on the same, and so she keeps going. She's like, I'm just really intimidated. I'm an indigenous person. I feel a lot of social anxiety. He says, okay, all right, we all feel anxiety. Now, at this time, I'm going to have to arrest you because you are not passing this test. And you are not driving safely. This is not something I can just let you go. This is something that I'm going to have to take you on. Which makes sense. I mean, if you watch all, 15 minutes of her sobriety test, you'll know this makes sense. She's like, and so this is her words. I'm not making this up. I am not making this up. This is her words. She says, you're being a white man. I don't know what that has to do with anything. But somehow, this was a reason for her to get, and so he says, okay, well, I'm going to arrest you. And he goes to grab her arm, not violently or anything, and she tries to kind of like pull away. He's like, ma'am, don't do this. You're going to get a charge for resisting. Just don't. Just don't. She still tries to be all like whiny. And here's what I'm getting at. He loads her in the car, and she's all yelling and screaming and throwing a fit and crying and all this. And this is what I'm getting at. There was a complete disconnect that she was unable to allow the possibility that there are consequences for her actions. Just completely. And this is just one example. I see this all the time. I'm seeing it more and more and more. And like I say, it's more common with people under 30. But I do also see it from older people, too. I've seen it in a 70-year-old before. So, let's not get, kids nowadays, let's not get too far with that. But I'm getting to a point here, okay? Beyond this, even more so than this, specifically, there is a lot of what people are calling church hurt going on right now. So there's two sides of this, and I'm going to try to be as fair as humanly possible. But basically, yes, church hurt is on the rise. People going to church, being treated terribly, and then leaving church and stop going to church. Okay, all right. So just we're all clear. And I mean, even if you turn on the news, you see this kind of stuff happening all the time. Leaders are almost constantly getting caught in these different scandals. It's you see this kind of stuff all the time. So there is some warrant for it. And I mean, even if you think over your own history, you probably have your own stories of going to church and getting hurt because you're a person and there's other people at church. So that kind of makes sense. But so there's kind of two aspects of this. There's the part where, yeah, this is not okay and we do need to do better. And then there's the other part of it where there are consequences for actions, and that's not the same as a toxic church environment. Now, I bring this up because up to this point, we've been in Philippians like a number of months now, and we've been going through verse by verse, and we've been hitting on a lot of really big ideas. But there's a couple of things that we really haven't touched on. One of them is, why is Paul not correcting the people in Philippians that are causing Philippi who are causing these problems? We'll look at that later. The second thing that we have not looked at is every time that there's church conflict, some kind of demonic thing happening. What's going on there? Or when there's church conflict, is that just something to be expected? So that's what we're looking at today. Okay, why does conflict happen in a church? Because there's people. Okay, there has to be some realization of that. It's not people picking on each other. It's just the way it happens. I'm not saying it's okay for there to constantly be these ongoing conflicts, but it's a normal process. The problem in the book of Philippians is that it's getting out of hand. It's not just one person got offended, they had to go home and pray it through for the afternoon, and they came back and they were fine. It's not like that. It's an ongoing thing where there's conflict after conflict, everybody's getting involved, and it's becoming an us versus them cliques thing going on. And it's not helping the situation. Now, you take that and you kind of compare that to what we're talking about today, toxic masquerades. What is a toxic masquerade? That's where people will call themselves Christians. They will genuinely believe that they are Christians. Maybe even they've been in church their whole life, yet they aren't Christians. And you're seeing this happen more and more. And a lot of times people say, the church hurt me, when what they really mean to say is there was a person there who either made a mistake. That happens. Or there was a person there that you just didn't get along with. That happens. Or there was a person there who was calling themselves a Christian, and they just aren't one. So, we went through all that. Now we can actually get to the Word. Please stand for the reading of the word. We're going to be in 2 Timothy today, not Philippians. I know you were all expecting Philippians, but I fooled you. Okay, so it says this, but know this, hard times will come in the last days. 4, people, they're going to be lovers of self, lovers of money, boastful, proud, demeaning, disobedient to parents, ungrateful, unholy, unloving, irreconcilable, slanderers, without self-control, brutal, without love for what is good. They're traitors, reckless, conceited, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God. And then this little clincher here, holding to the form of godliness, but denying its power. Avoid these people. Lord, we thank you for your word. I just pray you'd touch this church and bless them. Lord, help them to seek you all their life, and everything, Lord, help them to always seek you. God, give them ears to hear whatever you'd have them to hear today. And Lord, touch my mouth and anoint me as your servant, Lord, that I would say whatever you would have them hear, God. That you would put a guard over my mouth, that I would say the things that you want, not Michael coming through, but you coming through, Lord. And Lord, let me be made less, and you be made more. Lord, to your name be the glory and the honor and the power. We love you, God. Amen. Okay, you may be seated. Okay, so there's a lot going on in these verses. I'm not even going to pretend like this is just a real quick thing to get through. There's a lot going on here. And if you're anything like me, you've heard pastors preach out of these verses probably a billion times, okay? This is one of those staple verses where it seems like pastors love going to it over and over again. But I just want you to know, in the time that I've been here, this is the one and only time that I have used these verses, okay? And beyond that, I don't believe I have ever preached out of these verses, ever. So, keep that in mind as we go through. And try, if you can, try not to pay too much attention to what pastors have previously preached from this section, and try to see what the Word has to tell us today. So let's start back at the beginning. It's, yes, God, I'm here. I'm just kidding. Okay. It says there in verse 1, but know this, hard times will come in the last days. Okay, so 2 questions. When is this going to happen? When is this last days thing? When is that? Well, the question that we get the answer that we get from all of Scripture, the last days are now. They're now. The last days started when the Spirit was given to the church, and it goes through till today. Just one example of that is in the prophet Joel. He says, in the last days, I will pour out my Spirit on all flesh. That's what he says. That happened in Acts. And then to highlight this point, Peter quotes that verse from Joel and says, this is what Joel says, in the last days these things are going to happen. So, we can conclude from all this, especially as you read through books like 1st and 2nd Peter, now is the time of the last days. The next question that follows from this first verse is, why? Why are there going to be hard times? Why? Well, it said very clearly in verse 1, the why is because people will be lovers of self. Look, we'll read it again. Hard times will come in the last days, for people will be, and it goes on through the rest of the list. Now, as we're going through this, I want you to keep in mind that the first part of the verse and the last part of the verse are kind of what you would call catch-alls. Catch-all terms, okay? So a lover of self, everything else that he's going to hit on are things that come from people who are lovers of self. And then the last bit, he says that they have the form of godliness but deny its power. That is pretty much a summation of all of these verses. So verses 2 through 5, okay? So the beginning and the ending is kind of like a catch-all, and we can move on. So why are we having difficulties? Why is there so much church hurt going on? Why are there so many problems? Why aren't people getting along? Not just in the culture, but in the church. Christians aren't getting along. People aren't getting along online and offline and here and there and in the house and with the fox and in the box, and nobody's getting along anywhere. Why is that happening? Because we're in the last days, and in these last days, people will be lovers of self. This is why. That's what's going to happen. So church hurt is real. I'm not saying it is not real. It is oftentimes blown out of proportion, but it is still real. So we'll get to that in just a second. It is happening more and more, and we will continue to see it happen more and more. And you're going to see what happens is people, who do this kind of stuff, they have no love for anyone but for themselves. It's about them. So let's kind of temper this with two quick but waits, just so that we can look at the rest of the verses with maybe proper glasses on. The first but wait is, some people see toxic everywhere. They see toxic, even when there isn't a toxic situation, it was a toxic situation. And so they'll go from church to church because it was a toxic situation. They'll go from relationship to relationship. It was toxic. And that's like just their favorite thing. Anytime that they have a problem with somebody, it's because the other person was toxic. So let's just, right out of the get-go, there's a lot of false labels of toxic, all right? Not every time that somebody says to you, I had church hurt, is there actually church hurt going on? Okay, that's just addendum. In fact, a lot of times, being a pastor, it's weird because you get the best and worst from everybody. And you see things that are so close together. You'll be talking to one person and they'll say, I just don't feel like I can make it. I don't feel like I can keep going. I don't feel like I can get through this. Then you go straight from that and that emotional situation to somebody asking a question about, like, hey, why don't we do this, Pastor? I don't know. I'm not really thinking about it. I don't know. Like, maybe we'll talk about it some other time. Well, Pastor, you're not really listening to what I'm saying. You are absolutely right. My mind is a million miles away. You are totally right. So you go from there, and there's a Pastor. Someday you'll be a better pastor. Well, thanks. I'm glad you believe in me. I'm glad you have high hopes for my future. And then from there you go to the next person. Pastor, I was just really touched by your message. Like, really? Because 2 weeks ago I worked so hard on that message, and people were falling asleep. And then this one, it was a backup. What are you talking about? And they're just like, it touched me, it moved me, Bob. And I don't get how this is happening. You see a lot of different things. And one thing you see people, like I said this morning, the whole story had a reason, okay, who do things and then they're surprised by the consequences. They'll act ugly to people, and so you talk to them as a pastor and say, look, you can't treat people like this. You can't do this. And so then they come up and they're like, Pastor's against me, pastor hates me, and then they start bad-mouthing me, saying things I didn't do or didn't say, and then leaving the church. It's like, well, what? This kind of stuff happens. It happens. Part of that's because of misunderstandings. Part of that's because in the last days, people will be lovers of self. You just have to be okay with the fact that we are not in paradise right now. We are on earth, and we're here in the last days. So the second little but wait is this. There's no way to avoid the fake. The fake will get in with the real. There's no way to avoid it. Even Jesus hits on this when he says, his servants are like, well, should we go and tear out the tares? And his servants say no. So Jesus says, no, leave them in and let the wheat and the tares grow in together, and we'll worry about it in the end. Even Jesus acknowledges fact. There is no easy solution. You can't just have a policy in place where, to save yourself from getting church hurt. It's not going to happen. That solution does not exist. So what happens is, hopefully, a church has love for each other, for the community. We don't come in here and make fun of transgenders, for instance, right? We tell people about Jesus. Hopefully, that's the idea. Okay. Well, so with that, sometimes people come in because they like being a part of things, but they don't really like God changing them. You know what I mean? And so because of that, what are you going to do? Vet people? This week, have you grown? You really can't do that. There's no easy solution. So, unfortunately, the only way through this is to be absolutely clear that you have to endure the abuse. Well, why aren't the pastors, bringing correction? And they are. Rome wasn't built in a day, though. And a lot of times, it's not somebody who is a problem person. It is somebody who is struggling. How do you possibly discern who's struggling and who is a bad seed? You really can't. You give them chances, you try to disciple them, and sometimes it doesn't go well. That doesn't mean that every single time that somebody leaves a church, are they a bad seed. Sometimes they leave a church because there's a misunderstanding or because they just didn't jive with how that church was going. That happens. Sometimes there's lots of different reasons. But then there are some times where as you are bringing discipline, they leave the church because they don't want the genuine. So you have Paul is writing 2 Timothy to a pastor to deal with some things that he's going through and kind of encourage him. This is one of the last, if not the last thing in fact, I believe it is the last thing Paul writes before he dies. So, he's really just trying to get the point across, for Timothy not to give up, but to keep going because he knows his time is about over. So he's trying to get things all together, and the only solution here is to endure the abuse. So he goes on, this is what's going to happen the last time. The church is going to have hard days. He's not saying people are going to have hard days. He's saying the church is going to have hard days. Why will the church have hard times? Because there'll be people in our midst who are lovers of self. They will have the form of godliness, but deny its power. This is why there's so much church hurt. This is why there's so much church scandal right now. It won't get better, guys. It's going to get worse. You can prepare against it, like installing cameras is a great example. You can do things to try and limit the hurt, but you can't make somebody else's choice for them. So that takes us to the list. For people, the reason why there's going to be all these hard times is because people are going to be lovers of self, lovers of money, boastful, proud, demeaning, disobedient to parents, ungrateful. Let's stop there, because this list goes on for a while, so we're just going to whoop. In fact, I will say this. I'm going to go through a couple of these just to kind of help us get the idea, but we're not going through all the things. I just want you to get the idea of what's being said. The first thing that he brings up is lovers of self, which, like I said, is a catch-all. And boy, oh boy, does that fit to a T what we see all around us. We live in a very self-loving culture, which I think has always been a thing, but the problem is it's getting into the church just like Paul said it would, and it was in the church back when Paul was writing this. He's writing regarding a specific situation in Ephesus where they were doing the exact same thing that we were doing. Exact same thing. And so you hear people saying, avoid toxic people, avoid toxic situations, and there's truth to that, but the problem is it's so out of balance. People are getting where they aren't even working through problems, normal conflicts that they have with people, because it's toxic. It's like, well, no, it's not toxic. It's a chance to grow. I mean, if we throw away everything that's toxic under those definitions, then even having kids is toxic. You might as well get rid of them. Like, what? But we all no, that's silly. Of course, you have to raise your kids. You don't throw them out the door because it's hard to parent. Anyways. Then nowadays we have what's called the influencer. You guys know about this? These are people who record themselves doing things, and that's it. Sometimes they'll be eating a sandwich, and they will record themselves eating a sandwich, and then they will post a video of them eating a sandwich online. And then other people will go and watch them eat the sandwich, and then scroll to the next video of somebody else eating a sandwich. I don't know. And you see people doing at the gyms now. You can't just go and work out. You've got to wear these really tight clothes. And then you've got to do this booty thing in front of the camera, and you can't clip it out. It's got to be in there. You got to leave it. And then finally, we may get to see you lift a weight. Good for you. I'm not actually at the gym lifting weights. I'm watching somebody else at the gym watching weights and wearing very, very tight clothes while they're doing it. The influencer. I don't know why this is. Actually, I do know why this is such a big thing. We love ourselves very much. There's the idea of sacrifice is really getting to be diminished, almost made fun of, even to the point where feminists nowadays are talking about how if they have a son, they're going to abort the son, because that will add to the patriarchy and add to the problem. So they'll have the child if it's a girl, but if it's a boy, just... This is actually a thing, okay? Just in case you aren't reading the newspaper and paying attention to what's going on social media, this is an actual thing. It's all about me time. Girl, don't throw away your career for the sake of your house. Why not? Why not? What's wrong with building your house? When did that become a bad thing? And not just men, and not just women, men too. Let's build the house. What? Why is it? You build your kids, build up your spouse, build up your family, build something worthwhile. There's no longer joy in working hard. It's always, what do I get out of it? Instead of just working hard just to be a hard worker, it's work hard or work just enough to get your paycheck. There's no joy in raising your family, no joy in going to church. And then as a result, church is now expected to step up and be an entertainment. You know what I mean? Where people go to church, and they will go to a church not based off of God's leading, not based off of the power of the Spirit, not based off of the sermons being on point, but I liked their lights. The worship was good. Guys, worship leaders die eventually, right? Like, if you're going to a church for worship, you're going to be disappointed. Not every sermon's going to be on the ball. Not every single time that the children's pastor is doing her thing, or is she going to be on the ball. But this is what's happening. So we get to the next thing. They're not just going to be lovers of self. There's going to be lovers of money. And what we misread this all the time. We say rich people. In fact, nowadays there's this kind of a push to demonize anybody that has money. Rich people. Why doesn't Elon Musk give away all of his money to everybody else so that everybody else isn't poor? Why don't you give some of your money away to help somebody in need? Like, why are you worrying about what some billionaire off somewhere else is doing with it? Water your own garden. He's not talking about rich people. He's talking about people who live in the pursuit of riches. You can be rich and not be a lover of wealth. And you can be poor and be a lover of wealth. These people are absorbed with spending money. They're absorbed with constantly saving money. And to be sure, it's good to be a good steward. That's great. But let me clarify. It's bad when you are wasteful with your money. God gave it to you to use wisely, right? But it's also bad when you're stingy with your money. God didn't give you your money to sit on. If you're building up like a retirement, that's fine, whatever. But I'm talking about where you are so stingy with your money, God can't even get it out of your hands with a pickaxe. You know what I mean? Like, there are things that we need to be about the master's business, and part of that is money. So, yes, it's good to be a good steward. Just like here with the church, we try to be wise with the finances. But we don't just sit on the finances. We are doing something with that money. We want it to be profitable. So he goes on to the next thing, and he says, boastful. Be lovers of self, lovers of money, boastful. Boy, oh boy. Boy, oh boy. Nowadays, you have a lot of things. You have nowadays people who are quiet boastful. What do you mean by that? I mean, they put on a facade of, I don't expect a pat on the back. But then when you don't give them a pat on the back, they get really mad. I think this is called narcissism, but I'm not entirely sure. But boastful people, look at how much I do for God. God owes me because I did this. Sometimes pastors do this. Look at how I've given up, God, so you need to, grow my church. Help my kids to never mess up because I did something for you. I did you a solid, so you need to do me a solid. Well, everybody does that too. I do so much for God, so, Or another way you see boastfulness come out is where somebody needs correcting, and so you go up to them and you tell them what's what. Probably not the best way to teach somebody something is by taking out your anger on them, but whatever. Look at nowadays we have the social media image. Everything online has to be perfect. It doesn't matter how much you and your spouse hate each other. As far as everybody is concerned, from your Instagram pictures and your Facebook profile and your TikTok videos, you guys get along and you're great. Like, everything's great. Everything's about this fake image. He goes on to talk about pride. Lovers of self, lovers of money, boastful, proud. Now, whenever I say pride, people always tune out and they say, got it. Well, I'm not a rooster, so that doesn't apply to me. It would apply to me if I wore like some, silk. That's not pride. Well, I guess it could be pride, but that's not only what pride is. Pride is simply being me-focused. That's it. Me-focused. So that can come out in a lot of different ways. Entitlement, like we talk about Karens, right? When you're entitled, that's pride. When you think everybody ought to hop to your tune, that's pride. When you see yourself as a victim and everybody hurts me and, I have a memory that goes back 50 years of things that somebody did to me that hurt my feelings, that's pride. That's pride. It's all about you. You can't get over it. That's pride. When you can't be told anything, when you demand special treatment, when the whole world revolves around you. You remember Goofy? Well, the world owes me a living. You know, Goofy. He used to sing that song all the time. That's a great example of what pride is. You know, you know everything. You can't be wrong, and you can never admit to a fault. Never admit to a fault. With your spouse, you don't ever say, I was wrong, I'm sorry. Oh, no, no, no. Because you don't want them to see your weakness. You have to let them know, I may have done something a little bit wronger than you, not as wrong as you, but you also messed up. So, this is all pride. Now, before you go saying, I obviously don't struggle with any of that, well, hold on. Everyone has a measure of pride. Everybody. If you're alive, you're breathing, you have a measure of pride. It comes out with how we dress. It comes out with the cars that we drive. It comes out with everything. Everybody has a measure of pride somewhere or somehow. He goes on to the next thing and says, demeaning. This is the one that you see happen so much. It is crazy to me how people can worship God on Sunday, and on Monday they can just be mean and hateful. Not just to me, I mean to each other. It blows me away. Oh, my God. Hold on. Wardrobe malfunction. It blows me away how common it is nowadays to see Christians demean people, not just in the world, that too, but also among each other. It is getting to be crazy out there, guys. Demeaning, that's basically, everybody knows this, you're either talking down or looking down on people, either or, and it's based off of things such as their age. These old people, they're just stuck in their ways. Oh, these young people, they think they know everything, Obviously, this guy's an idiot because he's too young. Or it can be based off of wealth. Those rich people, like I already mentioned, or those poor people, they're the problem with the world. Sometimes it's based off of color. If it wasn't for this group, the world would be better. And it really depends who that group is on who you ask. So if you ask a feminist, it's the men. The men are the problem. You get rid of all the men everywhere, and then the world will be a better place. If you ask, the white supremacists, it's going to be black people. If you ask, I was in Tularosa for a while, and there's this huge racial divide between the natives and the Hispanics, which the Hispanics are mostly Mexicans. So you have those two groups always at it with each other. You know what I mean? And so you'll be trying to talk to one of the natives, because Mescalero is right there. They go up and down all the time. And they'll be chewing out, this Mexican neighbor here, and it's like, oh, my goodness. So you're trying to be the pastor. You're trying to do the right thing, but hold on, guys. Ceasefire. Ceasefire. Let's talk about Jesus for a little bit. And you hear people say things like this, which all growing up, I believed this. Respect has to be earned. As a Christian, that's not true. As a Christian, that cannot be true. You should live your life like you have to earn respect. That's fine. However, you, as a Christian, don't make people earn respect. You show respect at all times. You don't disrespect people as a Christian. What you're seeing Christians nowadays that don't know how to treat people. They're constantly going from conflict to conflict with their boss, with their family, with their church, because of their mouth being open. 90% of the problems that pastors are dealing with nowadays could be resolved by a little bit of self-control. That's it. But you're not seeing that fruit of the Spirit anymore. In fact, nowadays, people are applauding people for being loud and obnoxious. She's not a gossip. She's a go-getter. No, she's a gossip. It's good to have a mouth that works great. Use it for the right purposes. Well, moving on. He goes on to say disobedient to parents. And this one is a little bit tricky, because here's the thing. Is he talking about kids or adults? If he's talking about kids, that would be the only item on the list that is specifically towards kids. Interesting. But at the same time, we know that adults aren't necessarily called to obey their parents. So what's happening here? Well, I would say that the word disobeying has a wider idea to it than we kind of attribute to it. That's what I would say, okay? So let me kind of clarify. When you get married, who runs your house? You or your parents? You. When you're married, who do you pick first, your parents or your wife? Your wife. Your new family. Made a new family. Your parents are now your extended family. Okay, all right. So how in the world can you be obedient to your parents if you can't, okay, all right, well, let's kind of hit on that. When I think when this is talking about being disobedient to your parents, what it's talking about is the quality of having no regard for your parents. No regard for your parents. That's something that is timeless. And I have reasons for why I believe that the word disobedient has a wider range. I don't really want to get into that today because it's going to really slow down things and kind of just take up a lot of time with things that you guys aren't going to really know what I'm talking about anyways, so it's just kind of be a waste of your time. So I'll just say that I think he's talking more about this, having that no regard for your parents. Now, the reason why I say this is because there's a difference between disagreeing with your parents versus dishonoring your parents. You know what I mean? There's a huge difference. You see some people who obey their parents, but then the whole time, their heart is not on their parents' side. They do it with resentment. They shoot off their mouth and talk back. They complain. And then they want a pat on the back because they did what their parents asked. Then you have other people who never do what their parents want, but I tell you what, they would die for them. It's a crazy world out there. And I really think what he's getting at here is that. Not crossing the line of dishonor. Be obedient to your parents. You see this more frequently in Hispanic culture than you do in white culture. In white culture, we kind of like just throw people under the bus. I'm tired of dealing with you. Into the nursing home you go, you know. Whereas Hispanics, they typically don't do that. Like sometimes they'll do it. I'm not trying to say, but typically Hispanics have more of a, family, sticks together kind of mentality. I'm not knocking it. That's what I'm saying should be the thing. It's a shame when people spend their life pouring into other people and then they get to a certain age, it's like, throw them out. Like yesterday's jam. Not that jam really goes bad that fast. But so honor isn't something you feel necessarily, it's also something you show. Look at nowadays, you see the rise of estranged families, don't you? Right? Don't you see this happening in and out of the church? You see parents cutting off their kids, kids cutting off the grandparents. Now, is there never a reason to be estranged from your family? Of course there is. Of course. However, you're seeing the amount of people being estranged from their families going like this. And a lot of the times, it's things that could be reconciled, but like he says in this list, these people are irreconcilable. It's impossible to reconcile them. It's impossible. It's like the uncle who's molesting, so you cut him off. He says he's sorry. You still don't allow him back with the... that makes sense, right? Having boundaries, that makes sense. However, well, I'm getting off topic a little bit. Let's keep going. He goes on after disobedience to say ungrateful. Ungratefulness is a thing, isn't it? I think if we could say, what does it mean to be ungrateful? I think we could say it is when you are consumed with the pursuit of more. You're consumed with the pursuit of more. Whatever your husband does, it's not enough. I want him to do more. I want him to give me more. I want him to provide more. Whatever your wife does, it's not good enough. I want the house cleaner. I want the kids to obey better. Whatever anybody does, it's not enough. If you make money at your job, you want more money. If you have money and you invest it, you want a bigger investment. Now, I'm not saying it's bad to be a good businessman. That's what I'm saying. But I am saying there is this kind of undercurrent of being ungrateful. It's really all around us. People are just not thankful, and it's getting in here too. I know when we're talking about me, when I say people, I'm not saying those people out there. I'm saying people in general. Me too. Just this last week, I was sitting there thinking about all the things that were wrong and bothering me. And then I realized, my thoughts are just not real good. So then I get this thought, and I say, I'm going to be more thankful. And then the next day, I'm being ungrateful again. I'm like, didn't I just make some kind of a pact with myself that I was going to be more thankful? What happened? So this isn't something, I don't want you to see this as me saying, oh, those people out there, they're just screwing up. Or you guys down there, you're just screwing up. I'm saying this is something that you see more and more in the culture, and it's so easy to follow what you see in the culture. It's so easy. Well, they're wasting all their day on their phone. Why shouldn't I waste all my day on my phone? What harm is it to mindlessly scroll? Well, actually, statistically speaking and scientifically speaking, there's actually a lot of harm to it, but we'll get to that some other day. It's where you are preoccupied with things, and those things can be good, those things can be bad, but you're always preoccupied. You're so busy. There's always something else. Your phone, your schedule, your something, always preoccupied. It's where you are no longer content in life. And you say this, you reach a place where you say this, well, I would be happy if this happened, I'd be happy. These are the things that I have to happen in order to be happy. I need for this to happen. I need to have this. I need this problem to go away. I need to live on a tropical island. I need there to never be a problem. I need my kids to always listen to every single thing that I say and always do what I want. See, sometimes the issue isn't you're not happy. Sometimes the issue is you're very ungrateful, and you're expecting the world. What is it? That one James Bond movie? The world is not enough. No matter what you have, it's simply not enough. And so the summary of all these things that he's getting at, and we'll kind of go through them one more time, but you could say the big problem here is a misplaced love. Misplaced love. That's it. He goes through this list, and if you go through it yourself, you're going to see these things. They're lovers of self, money, pleasure, and then he says that they're unloving. That's a separate thing. All of these things about love are listed separately from one another. They're lovers of self, lovers of money, lovers of pleasure, and they are unloving. These verses aren't that long. Basically, life becomes all about you. In other words, and I think this hits the nail on the head, gluttons. When I say glutton, people think food. You can be a glutton with more than just food. But it is true. We have always got our snacks. We overeat for our meals anyways. We need like 1,400 calories a day. We hit 3,500 because Mom didn't raise no quitter. Then we have all our snacks. We're hyped up on sugar all the time. We have how you people. Now this isn't me. This is all you guys. How you people can stand those sweet Texas teas? They got like this much sugar floating in the bottom. How are you not dead yet? Anyways, I'm getting off topic. But gluttons, gluttons of food, gluttons of pleasure, gluttons of time. Always got to have the newest phone. There's just misplaced love. So the summation of all these verses, and let's read through them one more time, and we'll get to a summation. But know this, hard times will come in the last days, for people will be lovers of self, lovers of money, boastful, proud, demeaning, disobedient to parents, ungrateful, unholy, unloving, irreconcilable, unable to be reconciled, slanderers, without self-control, brutal, without love for what is good, traitors, reckless, conceited. Why is their church hurt? Lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God. It is so easy to get hyped up for the newest episode of your favorite show. It is so easy to get hopped up on a new podcast, to get hopped up on a new book, if that's me, to get hopped up on, but not to be excited about the Word of God, not to be excited about prayer. Catering your life to things that feel good and seem good, but aren't actually filling you up. They're not resting your soul. Jesus said, "Come to me, all who are weary, and I will give you rest." What we do is we say, "I know where the rest is, so I'm going to live my life like normal." Don't you find you do this? Rest is there if you just seek. It's there if you just go to the source. But so often, if you're anything like me at least, it's so much easier to just find comfort in the things all around you. It's so much easier. You can just disassociate with your problems, disassociate with life, disassociate with the people. Just get yourself away. So much easier. Especially because our culture is always up in your face. Like everything's always so loud all the time. You can't even walk through the store without being assaulted with the radio and people speaking through the speakers and just quiet. Just quiet. Lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God. Holding to the form of godliness, but then denying its power. That right there is a summation of everything. Having the form of godliness, but denying its power. He's not talking about people who are messing up in the church. People who are just stumbling a little bit. They're trying. They're just not there yet. He's not talking about those people. He's talking about people who this is the pattern. There is zero growth. You can tell them the message of salvation. They even have Bible studies, is what he says later on in the chapter. They're having Bible studies. They're doing these things. They're meeting with people that they're learning. They're always learning more. They're never attaining. Never attaining. Their heart is not changed by the power of the Spirit. They look the part. They follow the rules. They follow the traditions. They dress the part. They come on Sunday mornings. They always have a smile. Nothing's ever wrong with them. But they don't act it. The love is not there. It's here. It's not about God. It's about me, my pleasure, my happiness, what fits my schedule. And you might say, look, Pastor, what are you getting at? Are you trying to say that's me? I'm not trying to actually say that. I'm trying to help you understand this verse so that I can get to my main point, which I have not made yet, okay? So don't think that this is me saying, all of you sinners, get my holy oil here, and, So just so we're all on the same page. I'll get to my main point. I will, I promise. So then who can be saved if I just went through all this, and Paul just went through all this, and we've arrived at the conclusion that these people, avoid them. Cut them out of your life. How can anyone then be saved? Of course they can be saved. That's not the question. The question is, the statement is, they are lying to themselves and saying, I'm okay, I don't need to repent. You see people doing this in the Old Testament too. The prophets were saying, hey, you guys, God's going to smite you. And they were saying, we're good. We're God's favorite people. What are you talking about? They blind themselves. And I know that we see these things in the world. All of these things that we've looked at, that's absolutely in the world. But what he's saying is going to be more and more in the church in the last days. He's talking about Christians in this passage, not the world. Once you understand that, we can get to my point, okay? But hold on, you might say. Hold on. I do some of these things. Does that mean I'm one of these people? I assure you I cannot answer that question for you. This is what I can say. If there's like one or two things, hey, you're a human, you're normal, God is still working on you, right? You are not a perfected work of art. God is still working on you, and that's fine. That's absolutely fine. Okay? But overall, do you show these kinds of things in your overall attitude and demeanor? Is this kind of the status for you? So then, surely what I'm saying, because we Christians love this, so much we love this is why people love the law so much, is because it's a very simple do this and don't do this. So surely what I'm saying is, hey, don't do those things. Do whatever the opposite of those things is. Nope. Not what I'm saying, and definitely not what Paul's saying. What is actually being said is, avoid these people. That's what Paul's getting at. Avoid these people. Remember, he's not writing to the church, he's writing to a pastor. And in that letter, he says, now in these last days, this is the nonsense about fakes that's going to happen in the church. They will have a form of godliness. They will look the part, but they will deny the power. The Spirit is not changing their heart. They are not genuine. They don't know the Father. They go to Mass, but they don't know Jesus. You know what I mean? That's what he's getting at here. Avoid those people. See, they heard the truth. We're not talking about the world, the church. They heard the truth, and instead of obeying, they followed their own way. And that is the way that they're doing. Now, once again, can these people ever change? Yes. That's not the question, though. They aren't changing. It's the same thing for, once again, going to the example of the molesting uncle. Can the uncle ever change and stop being a molester? Who cares? He's molesting. Fix the situation. If the situation's ever changed in the future, great. I hope he succeeds. But in the meantime, you don't delay what God wants you to do because the situation might change someday. Make sense? So if these people decide to stop this, that's fine. Welcome in. But in the meantime, he's saying avoid these people. Avoid them. They are always learning, never attaining. Their faith is never growing. And chapter 3 goes on to talk about this, so I'm not going to really, but if you want to get the whole picture, read through the rest of chapter 3. These are people who are obviously being misled and misleading. They're corrupt. Now, You might say, I thought we were supposed to love everyone. Yes, we are, but love and acceptance are not the same thing, first off. Second off, these are destructive people, and they are destructive of themselves and others, and they will go from conflict to conflict. If you allow it, you will get sucked in. They have no fruit of the Spirit. They have no love for one another or for God. And I will say this before we get to my main point that I've been working towards this whole thing. I'll say this. You will have whatever you nurture. If you get to be the person you say, I'm tired of always being the one who does the right thing. I'm tired of being that person who always fixes everything. Then you're going to become a very bitter and selfish person because you have whatever you nurture. If you sit up at night thinking about your money, you're going to become a lover of money. If you start praying when you're worried, you're going to stop being a worrier. You're going to be a prayer. Whatever you nurture is whatever you'll have. So what we do is we nurture something, and then we're surprised that we have it. Well, I get up, first thing I do in the morning is I scroll on my phone, and then I go straight to work, and then I come home and watch the news, and then I scroll on my phone some more. Well, guess who's not going to have peace? Guess who's going to be anxious? Guess who's going to have fights all the time? Guess who's always going to feel tired? Guess who's going to stay up past their bedtime because they're scrolling through videos? Now, I do want to get absolutely clear. It's different if you're staying up past your bedtime to read a book, okay? That doesn't count. Does not count. That is exempt. Okay, all right. Now that we're all on the same page, let's go to my main point in all this. Why did I spend such a long time explaining this? The things that you go through that causes you church hurt are not off-the-wall crazy. They are normal. And there's two things you need to do with it. Well, three things specifically, but the first and the last one are the biggest ones, okay? The first thing you need to do is avoid these people. Avoid those people. You don't find a troublemaker and think, I want to be their friend. When there is someone who's in the church and they've been in the church a long time and they're obviously just there for like maybe the clout or maybe to try to play club member or whatever, hey, good for them. Avoid them. That's the first thing. Don't pour all your resources, and I had to learn this as a pastor because I wanted to give all my resources to everybody. You can't do that. Don't waste your time giving your resources to people who don't want them. Make sense? I'm going to spend all my time and energy and effort discipling this person who hates me. They don't want to listen. They don't have time. They're not even interested in growing with the Lord. Versus, there's this person over here, they just got saved. They are dying. They are dying to know more. They want to be discipled. Well, who should I spend the half hour with? See what I mean? So first thing, avoid those people. Second thing, obviously, weigh your priorities. When you get to these kinds of lists, the lists help you to see deeper priority problems in your own heart, right? And so you see kind of some of these things, and you think, I kind of am a lover of pleasure. We all just have that in us, don't we? We still have that human fleshly man. It's like, yeah, absolutely. I would rather spend a half hour playing video games rather than a half hour in prayer. Absolutely. Like, of course I want to come home and watch TV or the news my show or the news rather than coming home and reading the Bible. Of course. Right? Be honest here, guys. You're not lying to yourself here. Isn't it easier to be a lover of pleasure? Isn't that an easier thing to do? It's easier to make the easy choice. Then the third thing, and this is kind of the big things I'm hitting at, is the first thing and the third thing. When you are going through church pain or whatever, okay, here's the thing. Start to see your pain in light of Satan's attacks and work through it. And what I mean by that is this. Your pains, I just don't feel like I can keep going. I'm so depressed. No matter how hard I try, it's never good enough. Nobody's happy with me. I keep trying, and I try, and I try, and I have nothing to show for it. That is spiritual warfare. You understand this? Work through the church pain that you're having, whatever happened in your past, whatever's happening in your present, work through that as spiritual warfare, because you have to remember Satan would love for the church to fall apart. He would love that. And it happens by these little things. I've been doing really good by reading my Bible every day, so today I'm going to skip the Bible because I've been doing good. So it's not that big of a deal. Because I read all the other days this week. It's just this one day, right? So then the next day, I think I want to do something nice today. I'm just going to go and just give myself a little treat. A little Starbucks. I want some burnt coffee. And then all of a sudden it starts to escalate. It starts to escalate from thing to thing, where all of a sudden your pain is now something that is crippling you instead of something that is encouraging you to go to the Lord in prayer. Now, for those of you who none of that applies to you because you aren't a Christian or whatever, I will say this: if you're listening to this today and you're just like, man, that's absolutely me. I'm great at playing the part, but I'm not on with the Father. Like I'm not, like we aren't on good terms. If that's you, it's very simple. It's very simple. Time to get serious. There's no, hey, you're an idiot or anything like that. It's very simple. Hey, if that is you, time to get serious. No time like the present. Don't waste your life away. Let's get going. So, anyways, let's go to prayer. First off, everybody, bow your head and close your eyes before we go anywhere. Is there anyone here today who would like to accept Jesus as their Lord and Savior? Want to give it just a minute, just in case. We're not going to call you out or embarrass you. All right. I always want to make sure that we're doing that in a situation like this. If you would like to talk later, let me know. Now, moving on with the rest of us, with the rest of the things here, is I'm just going to pray for you, and I want you at the same time, this is just between you and the Father, okay? So I'm going to pray with you, I'm going to pray for you, but I just want you to kind of turn it to your own prayer. Lord, I pray that you would build this church's faith. And these days, there's a lot of stuff going on. It's not just the stuff with Iran. It's not just the stuff going on in America. It's not just the stuff going on in our families. It's all these things all around us. And the places of peace and comfort sometimes turn into kind of hostile work environments. Lord, as we're in these situations, I just pray you'd build up your church's faith. Lord, that they would encounter you in a deeper way, they'd know you in a deeper way, that their faith would grow, their faith would mature, they'd work through the problems as Paul wrote to Timothy in 2 Timothy, that they would keep at it, they wouldn't give up, they would work through the ministry, they would endure the problems. And Lord, also I pray that we as a church would have unity in these last days. They would have unity. Help us not to be quick to label somebody as, oh, they're one of the fake Christians. But also help us not to fall into the rut of aligning ourselves with people who are just destroying us from the inside out. Lord, help us to have that wisdom and that clarity and that courage. Sometimes these people are in our families, sometimes they're in our churches, sometimes they're in our work, wherever they are, God. Help us not to try to stick with somebody just because we think, hey, they're a Christian and, they're trying when they're not. Lord, help us to have that wisdom to know, God, that we would avoid the people who are causing our spirits to be worn out. Not the people in the world, not the sinners, not the people who need to know you, but the people who are calling themselves Christians and yet are lovers of self. Lord, help our love to overflow for you, for good, for each other. God, give us wisdom. In these last days, Satan is so tricky. God, give us wisdom. Help us to see, God, that we would follow your leading, we would follow your direction, God. Let your Spirit guide us in all things. We love you, God. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. May the Lord turn his face towards you and give you peace.